Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, March 9th, 2025. Coming at you live from Florida Media here in Rockville Center. Have an absolutely deadly post-deadline show coming up for you tonight. Brian Compton of NHL.com will be joining us. With me, as always, is Mr. Stefen Rosner. My name is Sean Cuthbert. Stefen Rosner, how are you?
I'm great. I thought I was going to get through a peaceful birthday with no news happening, but 2 minutes before the clock struck 12, chaos. Absolute
Sorry,
chaos.
pal.
It was okay. Like, I had the great dinner. It was awesome. But yeah, 11:58, I'm just sitting in bed and going, oh, okay, here we go.
Well, little fireworks for your birthday. Happy belated, by the way.
I'm now in my late 20s.
Wow, how does that feel?
Terrible.
Really?
Awful.
That's sad.
Yeah, I know.
Because it gets worse from here.
Yeah, I heard. I see it.
All right. Oh, wow.
I'm kidding.
Right.
That won't be the only roast I make of you tonight. So.
What do you mean? All right. Well, before we get into the roasts, let's thank our wonderful sponsors. Starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. We're also proud to be sponsored by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch every Islanders game with great food and drinks at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center all season long. We are also proud to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And last but not least, we are proud to be sponsored by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company and creator of the Diamond Airblade. Get 10% off at tovihockey.com with promo code HNINY10. And of course, folks, if you are hanging out with us live in the chat and you want to get your questions answered during Questions Brewing, please type in Questions Brewing, followed by your question, and then we will field that question during the questioning segment.
Say question one more time, please.
How about some further questions in Experience Points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe, where we make our points about the Islanders' experience last week. So before we start into the meat of the program, the trade deadline stuff, all that fun stuff, let's glaze over the games that the Islanders actually played. Let's start with Monday. The Islanders go into Madison Square Garden, for a revenge game after getting smacked around the previous game. What was that, 5-1 final there, Stefen? 4-1?
Yeah, no, 5-1.
Something like that, yeah. So the Islanders did well in that they reduced nothing, actually. It was a 4-0 shutout loss. Game was not in their favor, obviously. You have a weird game of dual bench minors for each team. Too many men for the Rangers twice. 2 pucks over the glass for the Islanders, but they were unsuccessful in this one. And this was a critical one. This was essentially their biggest game of the season against their crosstown rival, and they did not. They were not up to the task.
Not a task at all, and they start off great because they score a goal. Unfortunately,
a phantom goal,
and it comes off the board, and it's tough because that was perfect for them. Get off first goal of the game. Important, set the tone, and then once it's challenged, waved offside, Zizekas is offside.
Yeah.
And also, too, the way Lee scored on Shesterkin, I mean, you might have killed his confidence right after that one.
Sure.
That changes the game. He gets bailed at by replay review.
Yeah.
And then just a couple of unlucky bounces, pucks off heads, just not ideal for the Islanders.
Like the previous game.
Right, and for the Islanders, it's been a point of emphasis for Patrick Waugh that when things are not going your way on a shift or in a period, find a way to figure it out and get it back on track. And unfortunately, in this game, they didn't get absolutely blown out. It was probably a little closer than the scoreboard indicated.
Yeah.
But they never really were able to slow it down. All the bad breaks kept happening for them. They lose that game. And then you go into the locker room, and this was one of those losses that kind of told you they're done. Like, maybe they're going to sell, right? That's kind of the one you talk to the guys in the room. Ryan Pulak was saying, obviously it's result-driven business. Wins and losses impact what happens. Palmieri was talking about, how this, of course, shows management something, but we're the guys in here that have to prove that we should be together, things like that. But it just felt, the room was just awkward after that loss because, like you said, it was supposed to be a revenge game, and it wasn't.
It wasn't. And then moving on to Tuesday against the Winnipeg Jets.
Like we all drew it up, by the way.
Like Many people drew it up in very particular ways. Yes, a 3-2 win for the New York Islanders. And funny enough, we went into this stretch of games here, and I was like, the Islanders are just going to do the thing that they do, whereas it looks like they're coasting out of the playoff race. And I'm like, these guys are going to win 3 out of the next 4. And now I thought the Ranger game would have been the win, but they dropped that one. They win this one against obviously one of the top teams in the league against the Winnipeg Jets. They get the 3-2 win, and a lot of things bend in their favor on the out-of-town scoreboards. And here they are after this game, essentially still in the mix, heading into the trade deadline.
Listen, if you're going to throw away a game against the Rangers, you better come back and beat the best team in the league, because I'm not going to say this win changed Lou's mindset, but I think it definitely had an impact.
Yeah.
You lose that game, you get the out-of-town scoreboard, but they make up ground against a really good team. And I think you saw in this game, you saw heart. You saw them play like to their identity a little bit. And also they got some good bounces. And that's when Ryan Pulak shot, that goes in. That's a good bounce. And it was funny, after the game I was talking with Lee, and I just said, it's nice to get a good bounce, right? And he was shaking off laughing because, But I think, again, though, this was one of those games in the locker room which was weird because Brock Nelson.
He was in the lineup that night.
He was, yes. Yes, Sean, he was in the lineup.
He played, yeah.
He didn't play. He was not a healthy scratch, but Brock Nelson had a game.
He did.
And I think it was so fitting for that to be the case. I think the biggest takeaway is Shannon's interview with him afterwards.
Yeah.
Because in the room, Shannon comes off for her interview, and she's obviously emotional. You could tell and so was he. And we're in the locker room talking to Brock and talking to teammates, and really no one really still at that point knew. And even I think Andrew Gross, he asked a great question. He said, Brock, I know you're not going to tell us, but do you know?
Right.
And I feel like Brock's been honest, and he's handled this really well the entire time.
Absolutely.
And I have no reason to think he's lying.
Right.
I don't really think he knew. And I talking to people around the league and people connected up to 2 or 3 o'clock, and when the conversation stopped talking because they were figuring things out, it was 50-50. And I really believe that. So talking to Brock and him saying, I'm just focused, getting a little choked up, that was a tough room because I think players, some of them you could tell had an idea, some didn't, but just the unknown I think was not scary because they're all professionals, but man, did Brock Nelson mean a lot to those guys in that room. And you could tell that even if he was to stay, a lot of those guys are mentally, I think, starting to say goodbye, given just they know Brock. I don't think it was hidden what he was looking for. I'm assuming contract discussions, maybe they're not public in the room. Like Brock doesn't get up and say, hey, I got off for this, but they're a family. So, and I think it was really tough for them to talk. It was a big win, important win, but in the back of their mind, I think a lot of them knew that Brock was probably
and how fitting that he scores a goal, his 20th goal on the season.
And Palmieri gets his 20th in that game. He also played.
He was also in the lineup. That's true. He gets the first one to start things off, and the Islanders never look back after that. They get to the third period with the lead. They don't give it up. They hang on against a very tough Winnipeg Jets team. They get the win, and then all of the uncertainty happens between then and the deadline. And, of course, we're going to get to the deadline chatter, but, of course, we'll finish the games here. San Jose, last night, they go in there, first game without Brock Nelson, 4-2 win, starts off awfully, and you're wondering what's going to happen now. Is this the post-Brock Nelson era, of the New York Islanders? But they turn it around. They end up with a lead despite getting outplayed. They started off 2-0. Then they pretty much take over from there. They get the 4-2 win. And you wonder where things are going to go from here.
Yeah, they struggled. Then they realized that Alexander Georgiev was in goal. And they just started shooting from everywhere. Duclair's shot's got to be stopped. The Lee shot's got to be stopped. But when you face goaltenders that aren't good, this is what we've talked about all year long. You have to find a way to shoot. They get 2 power play goals.
2 for 4.
We didn't talk about it at Winnipeg, but that was probably the nastiest power play goal they've scored. The tic-tac-toe Horvat. Was it Horvat to Nelson to Palmieri one-timer?
Yeah.
But Duclair getting the board was really important.
Yes.
Very important for him to get going. The defense, Dobson, we'll get to later, contributed. Sorokin was really good again. So you understand the struggles early because it's a team that hasn't had Brock out of lineup in, I don't know, a very long time.
Right.
Outside of maybe if he missed a little bit with injuries and stuff.
Which he rarely did.
Right. He was the definition of available. But I think you see other guys, Pajot, passing his totals from last year in terms of goals. Him being an offensive guy. I mean, I wrote a story about there are certain guys that just have to step up offensively. Not saying they weren't doing it, but Duclair was one of them. For me, Siplikov, I had Dobson on that list because if they want to make the playoffs, which they do, then you got to fill a hole. A major hole that you're losing. And I thought it wasn't a great start, but you get the results you need. You had certain guys step up that had been struggling a little bit this year. So I think it was certainly a step, maybe not the best step, but a step, and now you got to see them build on it against Anaheim tonight.
Yeah, and a team, regardless of whether Brock Nelson is playing for you or not, you got to beat the San Jose Sharks. Right. And they do that. They go 2 for 4 in the power play, but also 2 for 4 on the kill.
Yep.
Not great, but we'll see what happens tonight after this show when they go into Anaheim. And then, of course, they wrap up the California trip in LA later in the week. But we're getting up against it. So before we break for Brian Compton, what do you got for experience points? Yeah,
I'm going with the Islanders farm system.
Okay.
So we'll get to the trade.
What did they do?
Yeah, they made a little trade there. They get Callum Ritchie, who arguably was Colorado's top prospect. I think Frank Saravalli had said that so many teams were calling about how they could get this guy. And he was really not for sale or was a crazy package. They get him. So he was a 27th overall pick in 2023. He's 20. 7 NHL games, 1 goal. 1 goal came against Ilya Sorokin and the Islanders. But this is what he's doing with the Oshawa Generals right now. 43 games played, 68 points, 15 goals, 53 assists. The plan is for him to not play this year for the Islanders. They don't want to burn a year off his DLC.
Of course, yeah.
But this is a guy that should be in the lineup, probably as your 3C next year. But now the Islanders, for the first time ever, have fans complaining or arguing which one of their players is top prospect, Yzerman, Nelson, or Callum Ritchie. And I don't remember the last time that's ever been a conversation.
It's been a conversation. You're a little younger. You're only 27, but there have been prospects in the system previously, and there actually was a time. But to your point, it's been a long time since you can actually say, hey, they have worthy prospects of that stature, and you can argue over who that might be. So a step in the right direction. We're going to have plenty more to say about that, though, later in the show, and I'm sure we're going to be talking to Brian Compton. So for me, experience points, I guess a little teaser for this. I'm taking off 1,422 experience points for the Islanders because at the end of the trade deadline, I'm still wondering what the plan is. We got a little clarity from Lou Lamoriello, and we'll hear about that later. But I'm not sure how well the plan is being executed. So that's my negative experience points.
Plus 2,700.
For what?
I didn't say my points, Richie. Plus
I thought you did for the farm system.
But I didn't give the points.
Oh, my mistake.
We got to make sure we hit the points. Plus 2,700 because he was the 27th overall pick.
Very nice. I like how you tie the numbers in there.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for Experience Points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Unplug your game and raise your experience at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe, find your crowd, unplug your game. We're going to break, and then we're going on the line.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Hockey Night in New York. It is time for On the Line, presented by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company. And joining us on the line is the great Mr. Brian Compton of NHL.com. Brian, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. As soon as the Caps took the lead, I said, "Oh, he's gonna get an empty netter." Lo and behold,
Is that right?
uh, oh yeah, it was a stressful 35, 40 minutes for me, but otherwise I'm okay. How are you guys?
We're doing great.
Doing great, doing great. Yeah, it's pretty amazing this ride that Ovechkin's on right now, getting towards that record. Last I checked, he's tracking to do it against the Isles, right?
Right now it's April 10th against Carolina.
Ah, okay.
But we'll see.
All
I mean,
right.
he can be streaky. He can go a few games without one, and then he can wait till that game at UBS. But we'll see how it goes.
No question about it. I already saw ticket prices are high on the secondary market for UBS there, so we'll see. But Brian, let's get started with something a little more personal for you. Unfortunately, you broke the sad news that you've been diagnosed with MS, and we just wanted to know how you were doing with that journey. I know that you're trying to raise money doing the Walk MS, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about that and how your journey's been going.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking. It's been a crazy year, a life-altering year, not just for me, but my wife, my kids, everybody, my extended family. It was the week leading into Father's Day last June. I started to feel a little off. My eyes were a little out of whack, which I didn't think too much of because they've
Mm.
been crappy for a long time. But then I started having a little bit of trouble breathing, and by Friday of that week, I thought I was having a heart attack. So I went to the emergency room, and they said, "No, your ticker's okay, EKG's normal." They did a CAT scan, and the doctor came back and said, "Did you know you had a stroke?" And I'm like, no."
Wow.
He's like, "All right, well, we're gonna keep you overnight, and we'll do an MRI in the morning." So they did that. So that was at like 7 a.m. Saturday, the day before Father's Day, and it was probably around noon. The neurologist who was on duty came over and he was like, "Yeah, we think you have multiple sclerosis. You have multiple lesions on your brain." And that was just mind blowing, both for me and my wife. So, got the official diagnosis about a month later. I've been on routinely. I've been on meds for, geez, since late August. I feel okay. I have good days and bad days, but the good days have outweighed the bad, which is good. I've changed my diet, so no more McRibs, which,
Oh no, that is devastating.
yeah, a little devastating in that area, but just trying to do the things that I should have been doing all along anyway, eating better and, working out as much as I can. And yeah, so this MS walk, they do it every year. This will be my first one, obviously. It'll be May 17th at Jones Beach. We've already
Nice.
raised almost $7,000, which is I mean, you guys
Amazing.
know how amazing the hockey world is, but between that and my friends and family, I'm just very blessed. So hopefully we can raise a few more shekels here before May.
Well, Brian, thanks so much for sharing your story with us, and we're 100% behind you here. And folks, if you want to help out, if you want to contribute to the cause, you can check out that QR code up in the corner of your screen. You can donate to the cause and help Brian out, and help support people in the MS community. So thanks a lot for that, Brian. And let's move on to the hockey end of things. Let's talk about this trade deadline. Let's talk about what the New York Islanders did and didn't do. How about starting with the big move? Brock Nelson, apparently he was offered a deal. He turns it down, to my surprise, apparently for $7.5 million per. Says no thank you, and he's off to Colorado. The Islanders get a haul. What do you make of that situation and the trade itself?
I'm happy for both parties, to be honest. Lou, he said it multiple times yesterday, and he's said it forever. He's not a rebuild guy. He doesn't believe in that word. He's not gonna, especially somebody in your 80s, you're not gonna wait, 10 years to get
Right.
things right. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There's no offense to Lou, but
Sure, yeah.
yeah, he's just not gonna wait long to do something like that. So, Brock has waited a long time for an opportunity like this. He probably took a cap-friendly deal the last time out, to be fair to him.
Mm,
So he'll see what the market looks like on July 1st. He's earned this right. And I think, kudos to Lou as well. From what I've heard from people who cover the junior level more than I do, this kid Richie can play, and he's 20 years old. He'll step in, next year. Will he fit right into that role? I don't know. I mean, you gotta see what the kid looks like at the NHL level. But we've talked about this before, guys. That prospect, the cupboard it's pretty bare. So to add a kid like Richie to a Cole Iserman, and really who else, right? To be honest, I mean Isaiah George, I
right.
think could play on the blue line, but as far as the forward position goes, there's not a whole lot there. So you add a kid like Richie to Yzerman. We'll see what the Islanders do with the draft in June. I think that pool is certainly deeper than it was last week for sure.
Hey, Brian, just want to say I love you first off. And
I love you too,
number
buddy.
two, with Brock, you're old enough to have been covering him for a while, right? So when your first, what were your first impressions of Brock as a young kid? And again, just watching him mature on a team where, there's different coaching changes, different philosophies, the way he's really handled himself as a pro, and then also the way that he really took his game to another level to become the player he's been the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, well, when he first got drafted, he kind of reminded me of you, Stefen, in terms of I don't think he knew how to cut a steak because he was 6'3" and about 125 pounds.
I killed him 5'10", so.
Yeah,
I didn't see that one coming.
Kudos to Brock for adding to his frame there. He certainly filled out over the years. But, I mentioned this. I know it's called X now, but it's always Twitter for me. I mentioned it after the game last week against, I think, what was it, San Jose Tuesday night? Who did they play?
Winnipeg.
Who did they play? Winnipeg, thank you. Barry Trotz changed Brock forever in every possible way. He made Brock a 200-foot, 30-goal-a-year consistent. I mean, if you remember before Barry, Brock was Mr. October. I mean, he was scoring goals left and right, and then he would vanish for months at a time. So kudos to Barry for just transforming Brock into the player that he is now. And I'm really, really curious to see how he performs in the playoffs with Colorado because, man, that is one deep team down the middle. There's not a whole lot of pressure on Brock. He's got Nathan in front of him and Charlie Coyle behind him. That is going to be a very, very dangerous team come playoff time as long as they get the goaltending.
He looked so good, Brock, last night.
He did.
Oh,
yeah,
my
I saw.
God.
I saw the highlights. Yeah, he looked excellent. I wonder where 11 came in there. The number.
Well, he couldn't wear 29.
Right.
So.
All right, fair enough. All right, Brian. So let's pivot to what the Islanders didn't do, and that's trade Kyle Palmieri. Now, the Islanders essentially made it known they were trying to keep both Nelson and Palmieri. Doesn't work out with Nelson. They trade him, and look, we understand that they're trying to stay competitive. They're still trying to make the playoffs this year. I look at that situation, I say to myself, well, you were barely hanging on with Brock Nelson. Now he's gone, and you're going to keep Kyle Palmieri around to still try to make the playoffs, and God bless if they do it, they'll deserve it. But what do you think of that mentality, I suppose, hanging on to Kyle and not even having a contract in place? There's still no guarantee he's going to stick around. So maybe just talk about that and just that overall decision to stick with a guy where this was a huge seller's market. You saw the haul they got for Nelson. You saw what teams were getting for other players around the league. Was it the right move to hang on to Kyle Palmieri at the trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, I could only honestly answer that if I knew what Lou was offered for Kyle. I think ultimately, Shoney, it goes back to what we were talking about before with Lou. It's a retool, right? It's not a rebuild. So if he trades Kyle too, and a guy like Cole Yzerman isn't ready to play, and Wallstrom's gone, right? Siplikov is. We still don't even know what he really is. Like, kudos to him for sticking at this level, but is he going to become a 25-a-year goal scorer? I don't know. So somebody has to be able to put the puck in the net if you're still going to try to stay competitive at the same time as you're trying to add younger pieces to the mix. So I think it's probably a handshake deal already that Kyle Palmieri is staying for a couple of years. This is probably going to be one of those things where we find out on October 10th that he signed a 3-year contract, financial terms undisclosed. But don't be surprised if that's already in place.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. And I can appreciate your point about who's going to score the goals, right? I guess my question is, and even at $4.5 million, which is the number that was floated around, whether that's accurate or not, which it looks like he was kind of discussing with the Islanders, I guess that's a little less painful when you look at the cap going up. But at the same time, I guess my concern is, we now know for sure that Lou Lamoriello was ready to reinvest in two 33, 34-year-old guys. Give them extended contracts here. We're probably talking anywhere between 2 to 5 years, right? And I guess for me, I just wonder if that's, the right move to make. Because, listen, all of us can sit here and say, oh, well, you deal him, you get assets, and you trade him for something else. Much easier said than done, I think. We get that. But at the same time, for a team that does apparently now want to retool now that he's publicly said that, it's just difficult for me to kind of add those two elements together, right? Where you're handing out contracts to 34-year-olds, or trying to, and then at the same time saying changes are going to be made and we got to get younger. It's hard to, kind of put the two together for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, I'm very curious to see. I don't want to get fans excited, but if Mitch Marner hits July 1st, you know what I mean? Like, that's a Lou guy, right? So maybe, and Matty Martin, I'm sure, is already in Mitchie's ear going, "Hey, buddy," they're very, very close friends. I mean, I'm sure Matt's already doing the recruiting as we speak, even though
Right.
can get charged for tampering. Um, I don't know. I mean, I see both sides of it. Was he offered a second round pick for Kyle Palmieri? And if so, why did he pass on it? Again, this goes back to as well, Shawnee, teams that are going for it, that's going to be a bottom second round pick, right? It's not going to be the 32nd or 33rd pick in the draft. So,
Right.
again, Kyle's, a local guy. Obviously, he likes it here. And again, I would not be shocked if there's already a handshake deal in place for him to stay here for a couple of years.
So it's clear that the Islanders want to make the playoffs. I don't think we never thought that they were not going to try,
Right.
but it's clear that that's the goal. So looking at the roster now without Brock, who's that one player? I know it's going to be a collective thing, but one player you really think needs to step up if the Islanders are going to have any chance of making the playoffs?
I think Pajot has to score, a little bit more, obviously. He's got to contribute offensively. I've loved the season that Anders Lee has had from opening night, to be perfectly honest. I wouldn't worry about him, disappearing over the next month. But they need more from Pajot. I think they need more offense from Siplikov. Noah Dobson's got to be healthy, obviously. If he goes down again, forget it. Without Matt Barzal now, too, will we even see him again this year? This is going to be an awfully tough situation, but there's a lot of character in that room. Are they going to get it done unless Sorokin steals 15 games? I don't see it. But it's not going to be a pride issue. They're going to play hard every night. I know that's not what fans want to hear. They want to see W's. I get it. It's a results business. But they're going to need some of these guys who really haven't scored enough to pick up the slack here without Brock Nelson.
Yeah, it's going to be a tall order, Brian, without Barzal, without Nelson. We'll see how that all shakes out. But one thing I want to ask you, now that the defense has been getting healthy, and now with the expanded rosters, obviously you can hang on to guys, so I can see why the Islanders and Lou decided, hey, let's hang on to those extra guys we picked up, Perunovich, Boquist, D'Angelo. Going into the future, I suppose, now that they have this bigger collection of NHL-worthy players, right, on the defensive end, do you see any of those guys potentially sticking with this team going forward? Do you think maybe they just kind of serve their purpose and they're going to let them go at the end of the season? Or do you see any of those guys potentially hanging around and being part of the Islanders' future?
Maybe Perunovich. The others probably not. I mean, let's face it, D'Angelo is here because Dobson went down. If that hadn't happened with Lewis, maybe Lou still would have signed them for 775K. I don't know, but other than that, they've got to leave a spot open here for Isaiah George to become a full-time NHLer next year. There's only so many spots. Is Scott Mayfield going to be in play this summer? Lou has already basically promised everybody that there's going to be changes during the offseason. There's only so many guys you can trade, right? So as far as the three that you mentioned, maybe Perunovich, because he does have some offensive upside and he's still relatively young.
Yeah, Boquist is playing fourth line center now, so versatile defenseman right there.
It's like Thomas Hickey all over again.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So going to the NHL now, I just want to get your thoughts on the whole Rantanen thing. I think this is probably the craziest thing we've seen in quite some time. What do you make of, him obviously going to Carolina and then being flipped to Dallas, but also the comments from Cholowski? Because it seemed like he handled this pretty as well as a new first-year GM. Good, he went for it. It didn't work out. But I think teams and fans would love to see a first-year GM really going for it. It didn't pan out, but he tried.
Yeah, I think the one negative on that, I mean, Stankoven's a hell of a player,
Yeah.
so good for Eric to get that guy in return for Miko on Friday. But to give up Nietzsche and not know if Rantanen's going to stay, I mean, Marty Nietzsche is a hell of a player. That one was a little bit puzzling for me, but like you said, kudos for him to figure it out and get a pretty good young player in return for Mikko Rantanen, who's going to be 28. So the whole thing was bizarre for me. But when you're in a market like that, and it's a terrific market, But the Hurricanes have had a hell of a time trying to get over the hump there. They have almost everything else. They have the coach. Holy crap. I mean, I remember watching Slavin during
Yeah.
that first playoff series against the Islanders and man, this guy's unbelievable. And nobody knew who he was. And that still was pretty much the case until the Four Nations face-off. And now
Yeah.
everybody knows how good that guy is. So there's a lot of good young pieces there. And kudos to Tulski for figuring that out before it was too late.
Well, Brian, the last one I'm going to throw at you is Brad Marchand, Florida Panther. What do you make of that one? And can anybody beat a team with all that firepower, all those bullies on that team?
Oh my God, how much fun is that going to be in the playoffs, man? Hopefully Matthew Tkachuk is healthy by then, because if he's not, adding a guy like Marchand just makes it that much more important because you need somebody like that in the playoffs. But to have Marchand and Bennett and Tkachuk and Ekblad, they have so many guns on that team. They're going to be so much fun to watch. I thought it was a really cool moment, kind of sidetracking here, but to see that the reaction from Brady Tkachuk after the game yesterday,
That was great.
that guy wants in the playoffs so bad. And if those two teams somehow face each other
That'd be
in the
amazing.
first round of the playoffs, how amazing would that be? But I think Florida, if Matthew Tkachuk is healthy, they certainly have to be the favorites in the Eastern Conference.
Last one for me, Brian. Looking at all the teams that didn't do anything on trade deadline, which team shocked you the most and really standing pat?
Um, that's a
Not to
good
put you on the
question.
spot.
No, I thought LA could have done more. They were pretty quiet. I think it's kind of a cliche, but you get a healthy Drew Doughty, get through 3 or 4 weeks before the deadline. That's kind of like adding without giving up anything. But they've kind of been inconsistent over the last little bit, so I would have expected more from LA. But man, the West with Dallas and Colorado and Vegas, Edmonton. Does Vancouver find a way in with a healthy Quinn Hughes? We'll see. But these playoffs are going to be phenomenal in both conferences. It's going to be must watch.
Yes, much CTV, Brian. Well, as always, man, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for all your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And best of luck with the Walk MS. We're behind you, buddy. All the love. And we'll talk to you soon, pal, all right?
Love you guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Take it easy,
See you,
brother.
Brian.
All right, folks, that was the great Brian Compton. Again, hit up that QR code. Give some support there if you can. Great cause there. And once again, we're 100% behind Brian and his journey with MS. That's tough stuff, man.
Great walk, great charity, great person.
Yes.
I could go on forever about what he's meant to me in my career. And he's like a second dad at work and stuff, so I don't want to get emotional about it, but like
Sure.
he's meant the world. So I'm wishing him nothing but the best. We stay in touch. But it's tough news. I remember when he told me to, and it's tough, but again, he's a warrior. He'll fight this. So.
No, he's the man, and he has such a great attitude about it, and he's got the updates on Instagram and on the treadmill and everything like that. So
I just feel bad for McDonald's because now they won't sell a single McRib.
The stock is down.
The
stock is down, but best to him and the family. So that'll do it for On the Line, presented by Tovi Hockey. Stefen, it's time for you to take it away.
Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company, is the creator of the 100% solid carbon fiber Diamond Air blade, the only other NHL-approved blade technology, with superior feel and increased swing speed due to its perforated design, unparalleled control thanks to the micro-grip blade texture, greater durability courtesy of its patented aerodynamic cross-beam construction, unparalleled shooting accuracy thanks to its large sweet spot. Tovi Hockey is changing the game by making the next-gen stick of tomorrow available today. Go to tovihockey.com to check out their great selection of sticks, gear, and apparel, and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. Tovi Hockey. Stronger, faster, superior.
Stronger, faster, and superior.
That's
Stefen.
what I said, yes.
Yes, I like to repeat
I know
that
you do. It's
every
like an
time.
echo.
Yes, so that'll do it for On the Line. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, it is time for What's on Tap.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York. the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The train rolls on right into Center Station, courtesy of the LIRR. It's time for What's on Tap, brought to you by Center Station Bar and Grill. Stefen, let's talk about What's on Tap, starting with tonight.
In like 40 minutes, 50 minutes?
The Anaheim Ducks. The Islanders will play in, they still calling that the Duck Pond out there?
It's called the Honda Center, so I don't know.
Right, yeah. I think at one time it was the Duck Pond before sponsors took over every arena. But yes, another weak California team the Islanders will be facing. This is another 2 points they need to take if we are to take them seriously in their quest for the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Ducks are not a good team. However, they are a young, fast team.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're always going to be dangerous for teams that maybe don't do great against speed. So I think early on in this game, forecheck is, against fast teams and most teams, forecheck is so important. So the Islanders have to get on it. They can't have a slow start because there's talent on this Ducks route. Look at the Sharks, there's talent as well, but I think Anaheim's more ready to win. Mm-hmm. Not that they are going to win, but they're just more ready.
Sure.
So I think the Islanders have to be careful. Trevor Zegras. I mean, we saw last year, Trevor Zegras put somebody in a blender last year when we were in Anaheim, but it's also the second end of a back-to-back.
Right.
And I guess the good news is that the Islanders didn't play their A game, so maybe they have some more energy left in the tank.
Sure.
But yeah, you have to win this game for the Islanders because you have Columbus playing the Rangers. Columbus is up, I believe, 5-3 right now. That's a game that sucks for the Islanders either way because it's going to increase their distance.
As long as it's not 3 points.
Right. So, which we'll see, that's probably not the case, right? But for the Islanders, you got to continue to stay within, it could have been 3 or 1, I guess, actually, right, in theory, if those teams weren't playing each other. And they both lost. So one of those teams is going to win. You have to find a way to keep pace, and you're getting a great team in the Ducks to do that again. So the Islanders have to come out strong. Duclair, I feel like he's going to have a big game tonight.
Okay.
Hogberg is starting. Boquist is your fourth-line center.
How many minutes is he going to get?
Boquist? Well, it depends how many power play minutes they get because he is on the power play. But it's going to be interesting to see that. So that's different. And the Waz guy, McLean's sick. But Hogberg's going to be the real question mark for me. He's missed a lot of time.
Right.
More time than we expected. He's been really good when he's played.
Right.
But it's also not one of those games you could spot a team a goal or two and have bad goaltending. So I'm curious to see how Hogberg looks early in this one. But him being back is so critical if the Islanders are going to make the playoffs.
100%. Keep the shots to the outside. Tuesday night, they wrap up the California trip. They go into LA, a late 10:30 start on the eastern side of things. So drink your coffee, see what you can do about that. But this is when the March schedule gets tough for the Islanders. It starts against LA. I'll talk a little bit more about where it goes from there. But this is obviously going to be a difficult game. The Kings are no joke. They're a playoff caliber team. And what do you see there, Stefen?
Yeah, I've seen struggles in LA year after year.
Yeah,
it's a really hard place to play. As Compton said, the Kings have been, they didn't do anything at the deadline, which was a shock. I know they were in on Palmieri. I don't know what the ask was, but that was one of the teams interested in Kyle Palmieri.
Okay.
But they didn't do anything. And I feel you got to take advantage of that. They didn't get better. We just saw at the West how tough it is. I don't know how fans of LA or even the LA team doesn't do anything because how do you even keep pace? Like they were at a disadvantage doing anything, like getting a Tuck or getting Palmieri. Wouldn't have helped them too much. But they do nothing, which means they either didn't get the offers they wanted or they really believe in the
squad they have.
So getting Doughty back is huge. But for the Islanders, that's a tough team. And to end the road trip, we always talk about too. You find a way to beat Anaheim, to sweep this this California road trip would be so critical if they want to make the playoffs. So handle business tonight in Anaheim. Sorokin's going to be back in between the pipes.
Sure.
And you're going to need him probably to steal this game.
No question about it. And then the Islanders come home Sunday. The Florida Panthers come to town. We don't have to say much about them. Stanley Cup champions. That is going to be an extremely tough game. That is a 7:30 start. And, that's sweeping the California trip would be helpful coming into this game because you can never look at the Florida Panthers and say, hey, this is another 2 points. However, when Winnipeg came to town, they got the 2 points there. What do you see here?
Yeah, Florida is really good at hockey.
They're really good, yeah.
But Marchand is out.
Right.
Still, Kachuk is out. So if there's ever a chance to beat these guys, it's now. Do the Islanders play a game on Friday?
Yeah, they do. I skipped it.
Okay, just in my head I was thinking, that's a long time off. Who do they play Friday?
So the game that is still on the schedule
that's what I thought.
is Friday against the Edmonton Oilers, 7:30.
good hockey
so
also.
that is also a tough game. Yes, so you got back-to-back L.A., Edmonton, and Florida. Yes, the Islanders are not off on Friday. So yeah, you got 2 tough games here at home, but you can't slouch on Edmonton or the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, these are games where Ilya Sorokin has to be the number one guy. He has to win you these games. It can't be a game like I don't think the Islanders can overcome a struggling Sorokin in either of these 2 games. Like, your offense has come, but your defense, you can't take penalties. If McDavid's on the ice, whoever's on the ice, Wad better trust them to be out there. The defense we saw against Rempe, and they're not the same player, not even close, but how, if a certain pairing is struggling against a certain player, maybe switch up the pairing and try the matchup game and things like that. So it's huge that these games against Edmonton and Florida are at home, because the Islanders get second change,
right? And
they can dictate the matchup. So Waz got to be a difference maker in these 2 games also,
right? And when they come home from LA, 6 of their next 7 games will be at home. So this is a chance for them to bank some very critical points in the month of March, where you're getting really down to the end now, where everybody's going to be scratching and clawing for every certain point. And, with all of these tough teams coming up, I mean, again, you'd have to give the Islanders a lot of credit if they're able to get through these teams and actually grab a significant amount of points, even if that's by way of overtime losses, shootout losses. As long as they can keep, ticking more points off in the boxes there, then they got a shot going into April. But as we've said previously as well, April is no picnic either.
Yeah, it's funny we're saying this, because how many overtime points did they have last year in shootout points? I feel like it's been a while since they got
they lost a lot better last year.
Right. So I think now you do need points, but against these really tough teams, find a way to get one.
Right.
These regulation losses will kill you, because as much as you want to give the Islanders credit for how they've played, the amount of blown leads they have, they still have to make up for that now. So you have to find a way to get to overtime, get points, because regulation losses will kill this team.
Yeah, and after those 6 of 7 games at home, they're in Tampa and Carolina.
Yep.
So once again, the rest of March, not easy for this team, but we'll see how they do.
We'll see how they do.
And that will do it for What's on Tap, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch great food and drinks, live events, and Isles games all season long at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. And now we move on to Hero of the Week. That's right, folks. It's time to talk about heroics on account of the New York Islanders. Stefen, we're going to start with you.
Mine's Noah Dobson. This is a guy that struggled in the first half of the year, had his injury, but Compton talked about it. I wrote about it. Dobson's one of those guys that with Brock on has to step it up. He's an offensive player. We saw it last year, 10 goals, 60 assists for 70 points. And he's had points these last couple of games. Last 2 games, he has 3 assists, power play assist, which is important. Versus San Jose, he had 2 assists, power play assist to Duclair. He sets up Pajot for the one-timer. He has to be a catalyst in the offensive zone. He can't be fumbling the pucks at the blue line. He's got to be really confident. He's also has to skate the puck up. We saw it against San Jose. I know they're a bad team, but skating with confidence, passing with confidence. They need Dobson to be the Dobson he was last year, because
absolutely
the power play, I think, is kind of the key to everything going forward, especially against these really good teams. It's going to be hard probably against the Floriders, even Edmonton with their goal, just to generate it 5-on-5, because if McDavid's on the ice, he's in the offensive zone. But if you get power plays, these 0-for nights can't happen. You have to find a way to get points, and whether Dobson's quarterbacking the top unit or the second unit, he has to be the difference maker. And I thought these last couple of games, especially coming back from his injury, he's been a difference maker, and they have to see him keep doing that.
No, that's huge, because if he does get closer to form that we know him for, then that can help make up for the loss of Brock Nelson on the points table too, even though he's not a forward. But this is a guy who we know is capable of driving offense for this team. So we'll see how that goes. Great pick there.
Thank you.
I am going with Jean-Gabriel Pajot, 3-point night against the Sharks last night, and this is a guy who, in the absence of Brock Nelson, has stepped up. Looks like he's going to get a lot more responsibility with him being out. So good start. Like you noted, San Jose, not the best team in the world here, but he helped to get the job done. Let's see how he does going forward.
He'd get back to being the number 2 center he was in Ottawa.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
He's got his offensive game was pretty much shut off to play defensive role, which he played really well. They don't make it to the back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals without him. But if he still has that game in him, which we're seeing, he's, 12th goal yesterday, passes 11 from last year, and he's winning a career high in the faceoff dot, and he plays power play, he can, and the penalty kill, and that one-timer last night. I mean, I watched it again this morning. It's a legitimate release right there.
Right.
So if he could bring the offense, that's good for the Islanders. Also, trade value, of course, goes higher and higher the more he produces in bigger minutes, because then other teams can say, oh, he can play defense, and he also could be relied on offensively. So
always thinking about the future there.
Yeah. I'm in my late 20s. I got to think about the future.
You're damn right you do. All right, so that will do it for Hero of the Week. Noah Dobson, Jean-Gabriel Pageau, there you have it. And now I will tell you about Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com. And now we venture over to the Snake Den.
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to slither on over to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake Radonis. Jake, how do you do?
I'm having some allergies today.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Change of seasons, pal?
Yeah, it always gets
Got the
me.
sniffies?
Yes, unfortunately.
Sorry to hear that, buddy. Well, glad you powered through and you made it here tonight. What do you got for us?
So, deadline. I mean, I honestly like what they did.
Okay.
I think if Brock wasn't signing an extension, they did the right thing. And I think that the kid that they got back seems like he's a stud. I think they just did themselves a favor for the future.
Sure.
Now you could have, I believe he's a playmaker who could possibly be setting up Cole Iserman for the next many years when they're both in the league, obviously. Obviously, we don't know what happened with the Kyle Palmieri situation. I thought he was going to be moved. I think that it could have benefited the team, but without knowing the fine print of what they were actually offered. I think Brian was bringing it up before. If it was a second-round pick, a late second round is a lot different than a late first-round pick. But, yeah, overall, I like the return they got from Brock. Rooting for Brock over in Colorado.
Sure.
I'd honestly love to see the Avs win the Cup if it's not the Islanders, which I don't think it will be.
Fair enough.
Yeah, overall, I like the deadline moves, and I'm excited to see what they do in the summer now with Lou talking about there being changes. There's also a handful of UFAs who can supplement that goal scoring that Brock brought to the team.
Okay.
You make a great point. Great segue. On that note, Lou Lamoriello did speak to the media explaining his situations, and we have some audio from that exactly about why he didn't make other moves after Brock.
If we could have gotten younger and better, other than draft picks, we would have done it without question. But we felt that where a few of our players are, when I say a few, several of our players that we could have made moves with, they would be better done at a different time, where what we need to sort of infuse in a lineup, those players would be available. That's a decision we made. And along the way, we tried also to look at this season. We're 4 points out, not to give up in any way whatsoever on the guys in that room without hurting what the mission was to go into the trade deadline. And it ended up the way it was. But I can assure you that if there were other players, and not of the caliber that we got, but close to that, there would have been a lot more moves.
I think it's an important answer because, one, it tells the vets that are on this team that, hey, changes is coming. It also tells that Lou's probably back.
Yeah, that was one takeaway from me on that, yeah.
But also that this is the first time ever in a press conference that Lou kind of admitted that this roster needs to turn over. It's always been, and he still believes in the group, but he's pretty much saying that if the right moves were there to move several of our vets, we would have done it. And I get what he's saying and what Compton brought up about moving Kyle Palmieri for a late second. Yeah, it might make sense to keep him, but the problem is you can't move now. And that's the concern. A guy like Pageau, if it was only a late second, he has another year left. Lee, another year left. The defensemen have years left. Makes more sense to wait maybe at the draft or even next and move those guys. I get your point on Palmieri. I'm kind of in the same boat. I know you can't lose 2 30-goal scorers and expect to compete. However, if you can't sign Kyle back at a team-friendly deal, he's walking. That's the part that I completely understand from many Islander fans. You went one direction, don't go the other. But Lou making this statement should have been a sigh of relief for a lot. Again, words and then actions, different things. But listening to Lou and how confident he was that moves are going to happen, I do tend to believe that he does understand completely that this group that he has right now, it's run its course. They have to get younger because too many games they've showed their age a little bit as a group.
Which, again, to me is still a little bit of mixed messaging, right? Because if he's acknowledging that, okay, this team needs changes and we're going to make them this summer, if you know that this team needs to be better, then why not get a head start in a market that you already see as a seller's market, right? Now, I understand it's a double-edged sword in the sense that you want to show support to your current players. You want to show them that you still believe in them, I guess, this season, because he's essentially saying, I don't believe in you next year,
right.
At least all of you, right? So I understand that dance that he has to make, but if you're essentially saying, look, this team isn't good enough beyond this year to get where we want to get, and you have an opportunity that you can seize here at the deadline, you're seeing all these picks and prospects that are getting tossed around throughout the league, why not do that now? And this is coming from a very big supporter of both Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri. I love both of those guys as Islanders, but I am still looking at it from a very practical standpoint, looking at their ages, and yeah, sure, they might still have been able to put up 18 to 22 to 25 goals. Brock, obviously a higher ceiling there, right? But you know the team needs to get faster. You know the team needs to get younger. And you're acknowledging now to everybody that this is something we plan on doing. I guess it's just when you already have guys like Barzal out, now Nelson's gone, and you were barely hanging on. I know I'm repeating myself a bit here, but you're barely hanging on. Now these guys are gone. Nelson's gone. How confident can you really be that this team is going to get into the playoffs? Now, look, I'm sitting here hoping that they do. I've said it before on previous shows.
This team has showed us.
I would like to see them get through. We've even defended that mentality of, hey, you never know what happens when you get in. You have Sorokin and net, all that good stuff. But if we're trying to step back from that and be a little more realist, a little more practical, and look towards the future, there certainly is an argument to be made here to be like, look, you already got rid of Nelson. You're cutting off a strong leg there with him being on the team. Now, why are you keeping Kyle around when you know it's going to be a tough road ahead anyway?
So the one thing I will say is that if Kyle Palmieri, and what I had heard Andrew Gross was talking about, but I could confirm what he was saying, was that it was a 2 to 3 year deal at under what he's making now. If it is a complete team-friendly deal, and Palmieri is going to play, he's going to play a third line role, or not take a spot from a young player, like let Holmstrom play top six, Sipakov top six, Duclair top six, and Palmieri will be on the third line, more of a defensive role, helping the youngsters out. I think it's okay. That being said,
is correct. Yeah, I think so.
Palmieri came back and you say, all right, he's our second line win. Like, go out in the summer and make Palmieri your third. Make yourself as deep as possible, because if Palmieri's playing
get on board with
or third, even a fourth line role, depending on how deep they get, and he's coming in at a very team-friendly deal, that's the only way, to me, it makes sense, and that seems like it very well could be a possibility.
And I'll say this for the record, I don't think I would have been happy with the 7.5 per for Nelson if that was accurate and if that happened. As much as I love Brock, and as much as he still could put up all those goals, but I just don't think that kind of jives with this whole retooling that they're now talking about, because it's just been so out there how they need to get younger, need to get faster, and I think as much as everybody loves veterans, and you can make the argument you want to have veterans, mixed into the team if you're going to compete, I just don't know if that would have done the team any favors despite the cap going up.
Yeah, and I think if Brock stays, I think you do see more movement from the Islanders. I'm not saying
That's
exactly.
That's so confusing to me.
Well, I think if Brock stays and obviously if the Islanders are signing Brock, they believe that he could still produce. And if he's still going to produce and play, again, he doesn't have to be your number 2 center over his entire rest of his, it could be number 3 and still produce. I think maybe you flip other guys, but the fact they got the prospect back, they got picks. Like, I could see them flipping these picks the picks they got as well.
Yeah,
it was a weird deadline. Seemed incomplete. We've talked about it, but we're going to go back to the snake den. I'm sorry to cut you off and go on a tangent there.
It's all good. I was just going to mention some UFAs. So,
please.
I mean, the home run, the best guy out there on the market now that Rantanen signed. Mitch Marner would be obviously humongous. I don't think I envision it happening with the Islanders. But I mean, he's connected to Matt Martin, which was brought up earlier on the show.
Sure.
Even if Matt Martin's not playing for the Islanders next year, which I'm fairly confident that he won't
probably
be.
Safe to say.
I feel like he's still going to have a hand in the organization and could definitely be helpful in influencing a guy like Marner, who is a scapegoat in Toronto. He's actually pretty good in the playoffs. I know that's been a knock on him. He actually has 50 points in 57 games.
That's good.
I think it's just easy to point the finger at Mitch Marner. But other than that, some more realistic ones, which I don't even know if they truly are realistic, but you got Nick Ehlers, who the Islanders were interested in if Winnipeg was going to move him, and then Brock Besser. So you could bring another Brock into the team.
Hey, a younger Brock.
Yeah, so
got rid of Bo for Bo.
Yeah,
Brock for Brock.
Those 3 guys are all under 30 years old as well. So
also Besser did play with Horvat.
And Horvat, yeah.
Yeah, only issue is they're competing with about 30 other teams to land those players. But we'll see.
Long Island's got the schools and the beaches.
The schools, the beaches, and let's face it,
and bagels.
Lou Lamoriello is a little more convincing than past general managers on this team. So I think they have a shot. But we got plenty of time to worry about that. But I'm glad you're thinking towards the future, Jake.
Thanks.
So that'll do it for the Snake Den. It's time to answer questions in Questions Brewing. Play that jingle.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
I heard that in my sleep, by the way.
Love that. Infectious. Edzo, how we doing? And by extension, how is Happy J?
I don't know how we're doing it, but we're doing it.
You're doing it.
We're doing it.
Okay, that's great to hear. How are they doing in the chat?
We're all over the place.
Okay.
You know? But we'll segue. We'll keep Lou. And this is more of a statement, but the I don't understand part, I guess, is the question. So Andre asks, I don't understand how Lou can say he's going to incorporate younger players when Bridgeport is a total mess. There is no one ready to play. I am also assuming Lou is back.
Yep, I would say college players, depending on who leaves college, who stays. They're prospects that are really good outside of Richie, who's in the juniors right now. It's Denny Nelson, it's Cole Eiserman. George, though, I think George is the guy that's going to play every day. That's in lineup in terms of moving D, giving Holmstrom more of a true top six role than being a bottom six role is them upgrading that in that area. Maybe giving, Richie coming in is also matters.
Yeah.
So I think the Islanders do have young guys. It's up to Lou to give those guys the opportunity because that's what we've been missing.
Well, not only that, but also players outside of the organization, players that Lou may or may not acquire when we get to the summer.
Next up from Craig, regular human bartender. Great name. Do we really need 15 defensemen on this roster? Why were none of them flipped for assets?
So I alluded to this earlier. Now that there's no roster restrictions, I think I can kind of level with this line of thinking that they've had so many injuries already this season to the defense. Can't hurt to keep those guys around just in case more injuries come if they actually are going to stay in the playoff race and actually do make the playoffs. If another Pellick or Pullock goes down, as they tend to do, you'd rather have a D'Angelo or a Boquist or whomever around just in case that happens. So I think that's the thinking there.
And also, Pellick, no move clause, no trade clause. Pulak, no trade clause. Mayfield, no trade clause. You're not trading Dobson. You are definitely not trading Romanov. Brunovich and Boquist are both RFAs. So you probably want to see what you got in these guys, play them more, see if you want to bring them next year. There was no harm because it sounds like the market for those guys probably was going to be a fourth, a third. You'd rather keep them and someone gets hurt.
Next up from State of Survival, he asks, do you think that we might try to move up in the draft with the team flipping Oliver Kylington to the Ducks? Will our summer look busy? / does Lou plan to make more changes?
So it's funny that you say Killington because everyone thinks it's Killington. For some reason, it's Shillington.
It's Shilling?
It's Shillington.
Even though it's spelled,
I don't even bother
that
anymore.
way. It's spelled that. You're good. You're good. We understand.
But I'm pretty sure it's Shillington.
I didn't know this either.
Yeah. Too bad you don't have to know because he's not on the team. He got flipped 15 minutes after for future considerations.
Thank you for your service.
Listen, I'm a phonetic guy.
No, not your
like
fault.
Like most humans.
Anyone reads Wah, they say Roy. Just a habit. But I don't know if they move up in the draft. I could very well see them flipping. Because they got a Colorado. It's probably going to be... The problem is it's also not this draft. A lot of the trades you saw at the deadline were 2026, 2027 because the 2025 draft is not supposed to be as deep as those drafts. So I don't think the Islanders will try to move up. They could, but I think it's a weaker draft that they definitely rather just stock up for 2026, which should be their first round pick they get from Colorado, but Colorado's a really good team, so it's going to be a late first round pick.
I think anything could happen, and I think at least Lou tipped his hand a little bit and said he has intentions on making changes, so any of the above could happen.
Next up from Matt on YouTube, he says, how concerning is Callum Ritchie's shoulder injury history? Also, assuming he's on the ice next year and we keep Padgeau over the summer, is there a possibility we see Barzy back at center?
I'll do the Barzy back at center. I think it makes a lot of sense. You lose Brock, you just make Barzal your number two. Him and Horvat will play even minutes, whatever. And I think that makes tremendous amount of sense because Horvat hasn't really played with Barzal a lot. Injuries, huge factor there.
Right.
I don't know anything about Richie's shoulder. He's killing it right now. So I think he's okay. But I don't think Richie should be in a top six role. He should start at the bottom six, learn the NHL game, work his way up. But I think no question he'll be in the lineup.
Next up from Nzab09, he asks, if Brock re-upped with the Isles, would they have traded anyone? or would Lou have just run it back one more time because this team deserves it?
So based on what, and I'm showing you, based on what Lou said, I don't think he had any intentions to sell at all.
No.
No. I still think he might have done it just for the sense that, okay, we brought Brock back. Maybe we'll move because they're not losing 2 centers. Like, Brock leaves, you don't want to give up another center. You don't have replacements. I think Compton said that. Like, your center prospects are not ready. So I think maybe we would have seen that. But based on what Lou really said and back against the wall with Brock, I don't know if he makes any moves.
I think the plan for Friday was to sign Brock Nelson and sign Kyle Palmieri, and that's pretty much it. Maybe he even looked into adding here or there. Who knows, right? But I think that he made it very clear. Because, look, we know that essentially the only reason why he traded Brock Nelson was because Nelson said no thank you to the contract.
So
he was like, all right, well, I better get something for him, right? Because otherwise that's a problem.
It's a Tavares problem.
Yes, it is. yes, it is. So he takes care of that, but then he hangs on to Kyle even without a contract. So to me, he was doubling down on this roster once again. And this is a concern of mine.
Let me just sit up. Sorry.
Yeah, this is a concern of mine. And I've alluded to this in the past, and it's not necessarily what I think, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Because especially now with his acknowledgement that things need to change, the team needs to get better, he's essentially saying this team isn't good enough to go deep into the playoffs and win a Stanley Cup, right? I mean, more or less, you can kind of derive that from what he said, right? I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Right? So with that in mind, I think, you look at this whole situation and it's like, why are they hanging on to making the playoffs? And this is coming from somebody who wants to see them make the playoffs just because I'd like to see them. I'd like to see bonus hockey, whatever. But from a practical standpoint, why are they hanging on to do that when, it just does a disservice to this team? And what's the motivation there? Like, is it really because they believe that they can go on a run, anything can happen, jump on the back of Sorokin? Or is this about the gate? Is this about getting those 2 bonus home games in the playoffs? Is this financially driven? It's not an accusation that I'm making. It's just I'm throwing it out there. Is this the motivation behind hanging on to Palmieri, to still hanging on to this playoff race here, where quite clearly it's gotten harder when they're already out of it, in the sense that they don't have a spot right now. They're within reach, but they're not in a spot. They got rid of one of the best players on their team. So what's the motivation for trying to make the playoffs this year? Why when you see other teams like Boston, see other teams, in playoff races getting rid of players, saying, look, we tried, we're out, let's recycle some of these players and get some assets here. You see other teams doing that, and they're saying, yeah, it'd be nice to make the playoffs, but you know what? We're looking ahead here. Why is it more valuable to the New York Islanders to make the playoffs this year? Do they truly believe they can go on a run, which it's kind of contradictory if at this point you say that they do? Or is it more about money at the gate, getting those extra playoff games?
Remember that commercial where the kid's looking at the lollipop and he asks the owl how many licks?
Mr. Owl.
Yeah. And
know it well.
And what does he say after that?
So 3.
No, well, what does he say at the
How
end?
many licks does it take to get
at the end,
Fuzzy Bop?
he said the world may never know, right?
The world may never know.
So we will not know.
Yeah. The more we talk about
We're
it,
throwing it out there.
the more we talk about it, it seems like Brock made like a self-sacrifice for the greater of the team almost.
Or himself.
A little
He's gonna
bit
go.
of
He has a
everything.
really big chance to win a cup.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Next up from Jeremy Ford, he asks, what do you think Holmstrom's ceiling is? Currently, he's pacing at 51 points for an 82-game schedule.
I think this guy's a legitimate top 6 forward. Is he a top-line guy? I still got to see a little more offense from him. But, yeah, I think this guy could be a 65-point guy. And again, too, not only that, but it's what he does in the power play and the penalty kill. I mean,
he's looked good in the power play lately.
He's turning into Zach Parise in essential roles, not the exact same game, different game, but Holmstrom's a legitimate goal. He can be a legitimate goal scorer. So I'm very curious to see for the rest of the year, if when he plays these top 6 minutes, how much he can flourish.
At the very least, it's a good thing that somehow now we're talking about him being a top 6, maybe top line player. So he's going in the right trajectory here.
Yeah. Next up from Enzeb, he said, you guys were talking about other guys stepping up, Dobson, JG, etc.
Yeah.
How confident are you that these guys will do that? Other than Dobson, these guys haven't been that kind of player in a few years.
I think it's very reasonable for anybody to doubt these players stepping up and taking care of business, because they couldn't do it when Brock was there, and they couldn't do it earlier on in the season, right? So I think we would all be pleasantly surprised to varying degrees if they do step up. And okay, so let's use that as a theme for the rest of the season, right? This is now a test for the remaining players to see what they can do, to see if they can carry this team on their shoulders, go through a tough schedule, as we've noted already, because they will deserve it. If they get through the rest of March and April and they find themselves in one of those playoff spots, well, sure, maybe. But they will absolutely deserve that positioning if they actually achieve that, because it's not going to be easy. And the season's been so 500. It's just been so up and down, except just going along, win-loss, win-loss, win-loss all season long, essentially. And, it was hard to be confident in answering that question in the affirmative before the trade deadline. Now it's even more difficult afterwards. So I understand having any doubts. And so, show me different, Islanders.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is they're going to get minutes. There's more minutes to go around, so you got to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Time for a couple more.
Yeah.
Next up from Freedom Fun Adventure, he said, do you remember the phrase summer of hockey trades? Lou might be a perfectionist, and that prevents him from taking action until forced. Brock did the Isles a huge favor by refusing to re-sign.
Did you put this question in?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes. Oh, he just put in another one, too.
The summer thing, he said that before, he has to make hockey trades, but he's also not going to make a hockey trade if it doesn't make sense for himself. That being said, he didn't do everything he maybe should have done at this deadline.
Yeah.
And he's already admitted that he's going to do it in probably the most confident way he's ever done it. Like when he says, you can make hockey trades, like, okay, yeah, that's what a GM would say.
The intention is there. We'll see about the execution.
Yeah. DCMR asks, if no playoffs, does 17 play a final home game for a proper send-off?
I think so. I already said earlier.
If they're out of it completely and that game doesn't matter, I could definitely see it.
Absolutely.
Aisle 72 asks, do you think they need to get rid of some of the older defense over the summer? I vote Pulock off the island.
They definitely have to, because I think you're seeing now, not a fault to their own. Their games were built and they played a great system with Trotz here, but you're seeing with Wah, and Wah's, it sounds like Wah's going to be back too. You're building this team for Wah. And all the mobile defensemen you brought in, how important having a mobile defenseman or having 4 of your 6 defensemen be mobile. Like Scott Mayfield, he came back from his injuries that Sunday game against Dallas, healthy scratch for 3 games, played 2, one as the 7th, then was a healthy scratch again. Mayfield's coming in tonight because McLean's sick. I think Bokus would have played. So a guy like Mayfield, who really good at his role, but it seems like Wah is getting away from that kind of player. Pulock regressing a little bit to the Mayfield kind of role. Not a player that I think, if they can move to get younger, they have so many defensemen. They keep some of these guys George has to play. So I could definitely see one of these vets or even a couple of these vet defensemen moving. With Pulock and Mayfield, like Pellick's no trade ends on July 1st. Pulock and Mayfield doesn't. So if you're going to move them, they have to be okay with it.
I'm not convinced one of Pellick or Pulock will be traded, but it will show that Lou means business if he does.
Yeah. Okay, well then we'll do another one from Andre. Why didn't Scott Malkin, who was at the game, decline to talk to the media?
Because he doesn't have to.
Fans deserve some feedback from ownership.
He doesn't have to, one. And the GM spoke. So the GM said what he said. He also said that he's not his own boss. He has a boss there. Those conversations could remain private. Yes, would it be nice for Malkin to talk because it's been a while? Sure, but if Lou and Malkin are talking and Lou just spoke and said, I've talked with Malkin about this stuff, there's no point in Malkin's eyes to get on camera and just regurgitate what Lou said. So I get people are going to knock him not talking, and you probably want him to say words. I don't think yesterday was the day to do it, because clearly Lou made decisions were made. I don't think Malkin has to come in there and be like, yeah, I told Lou to do this or that. I think it's okay for him not to talk yesterday.
And anything he might have said wasn't really going to give any new information, right? Like, it's not like he was going to be like, hint, hint, wink, wink, we might have a new GM this summer.
He's also going to back Lou.
Exactly. Right. He's going to be like, I believe in the team. We're aiming for a 5th Stanley Cup. Like, you already kind of know what the guy's going to say. He's probably not going to say what you're hoping he was going to say, whatever that may be. I feel
like people get caught in that all the time, too. Like, well, how do you ask the deck? Like, they're not going to say what you want us to say.
Right.
Even after big losses, like, why do you ask this player this question? Why he sucked? This is like, guys, you're not going to get the answer you want.
Right. All right.
One more?
If you have a quick one.
Yeah. If Watt is back, will he get to choose his coaching staff?
I think so. I think already Benoit's going to be back. I don't see a way John McLean's back with how bad the power play's been. Maybe Abilene stays. Who knows? But I think Watt will have more control over his staff, especially at least finding a power play coach.
I agree with that answer, and that will do it for Questions Brewing. Thanks a lot for your questions, folks. Looking forward to Islanders Ducks, but we got to wrap that up before we wrap the show up. Going to remind everybody about our Patreon. Head to patreon.com/HockeyNightNY for exclusive content featuring Q&As, columns, videos, behind-the-scenes, merchant partner discounts, and even an invitation to hang with us here at Florida Media while we air the show. It's a great way to support what we do here, so please check it on out. We actually recorded some even more content for that. So check out patreon.com/HockeyNightNY. And now we will make our exit. But first, we're going to thank Brian Compton of NHL.com. Big thanks to him. Always a great spot. And also a huge thanks to our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. Also a huge thanks to Center Station Bar and Grill. Head on down to 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center for Islanders games, live music, karaoke, comedy shows, and more. Also a big thanks to Razor and Knipp Attorneys at Law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW-1500 for a free consultation. And last but not least, a big thanks to Tovi Hockey, creators of the Diamond Air Blade. Go to tovihockey.com to check out their great products and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. And folks, please do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe to the show, because that helps us and makes us feel really good about ourselves. Stefen Rosner, where can everybody find your content that you share with us?
Yes, Stefen_Rosner, STEFEN_ROSNER on X. Blue Sky, just figure that one out. NHL.com, the Hockey News Islanders, the Elmonters, Monday through Friday weekly newsletter for exclusive content, theelmonters.com.
Jake the Snake, if people want to venture into the snake den, where can they find you?
You can find me on X at Jake Radonis, JakeRadonis.
Nicely done. You can follow myself on Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. You can follow the show on all social media platforms at Hockey Night NY. You can check out the website for more content at HockeyNightNY.com. So that will do it for tonight. For Stefen Rosner, for Jake the Snake Radonis, for Edzo behind the mic over there, for Jay pressing those camera buttons and with the greatest smile in Rockville Center. I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night in New York. We will see you next week.